Hey man, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
That's a gnarly beard you got there.
Life's good, brother.
Awesome. You look great. You look great. Thanks for joining. I'll try to keep this short. Um,
I got an hour at least, so whatever you need, I'm
cool.
here to help
I mean, really, I just want to talk about Huachuma and rap about your story. Um, Talk about why you came to the medicines that you had experienced before, and the healing that you received, whatever you feel comfortable sharing, and where you're at now with the medicine, what your relationship is like now, and where you see yourself in the future.
you. Okay. I can start off by just kind of, letting you know a little bit about what brought me into the medicine. And interesting enough, I mean, I actually have this, like most people who come into the medicine, I have this really long, complicated story that I'm not even going to really share right now. I'm just going to kind of touch on, most of what was going on with me. But I'll just say that, like a lot of people, and actually, I'm going to get this out in front right now. It's like I suffered from a lot of different things, going through life, childhood trauma, a broken home, with divorce and violence and substance abuse. I suffered at the hands of the Catholic Church with violence and abuse. And, divorce, my parents that left me completely alone as a child. And I was basically sent out of the house at 18 years of age and told, hey, you've got just a couple choices: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. That's it. And at 17 years old, I find myself going to Marine Corps boot camp. And that was a huge trauma in itself. I mean, I was still a young boy. I hadn't even barely got into puberty. And there I was. And spent a good 16 years there. Did a couple of combat tours there, and more trauma. And also, even if I hadn't gone to combat, I look back on it and it was just the institutionalization of being with the Marine Corps and the federal government and serving that purpose really just had me wound tight and programmed in a certain way that wasn't conducive to good living later on in my 50s. And so anyways, so I had that. And when I left the Marine Corps, big difficult time adjusting to life. I found some escaping substance abuse, cocaine, meth, alcohol, you name it. Kind of got my act together for a little bit and got hired by the Seattle Fire Department and ended up spending a career there and retiring. And after that time there, I mean, I recognized I suffered as much trauma there as I did in the military. Just watching it, it was in a different fashion. It was I wasn't defending myself or my country. I was watching just the brutal carnage every day in the streets of Seattle, people abusing each other, people dying over just needless, senseless accidents and acts of violence. It was just crazy. And it was just how I was geared at that point. I had too much. And the last few years of my career with the Seattle Fire Department, I was suffering from very deep depression. I'll even say pharmaceutical resistant depression, because I sought out help from the Veterans Administration to kind of help me to just relax, calm down, and just live a normal life. And I realized that wasn't possible. And so, like I said, it got worse and worse every day. I retired from the fire department honorably, and there I was, and I just was like 54 years old, and I'm like, what has happened here? I started this journey at 17. Here I am, 54 years old. I barely even remember a lot of it. It was just a whirlwind. And I did a bunch of honorable, wonderful things, dedicated my life to saving other people, risking my life. And now all I wanted to do was destroy myself. And I have a beautiful family. I've got grandkids and beautiful wife, beautiful home. And I just said to myself, excuse me, I've got to do something about this. And so I ended up taking a trip down to Peru, and I really didn't even spend a lot of time thinking about it. Really, I just kind of was thinking, okay, I'm going to go down and do ayahuasca. And so I got online and I started looking at all of these retreats. And then I started remembering my time in the Marine Corps when I had been down to South America and Central America. And I started thinking about, man, I remember how much I really didn't like the jungle and just all the bugs and the heat and sweating and like I'm like I don't want to really do that, but I was willing to do anything that would to save my life. And I just saw this advertisement for a Huachuma therapy, cactus therapy place in the Sacred Valley of Peru. And I just saw it, and the connection was instant. The energy hit me, and it was like the voice inside of my head said, Michael, that's what you need to do. And I was like in such deep desperation that I didn't even really. The first advertisement I saw, there was a WhatsApp phone number for it. I called the number, and like unbelievable, somebody on the other end answered it all the way in Peru, and that really sunk into me. It's like, man, I mean, here this person is in Peru, and they're just like right there, answered the phone and said, "Come on down." And I was really concerned about going down there because I thought, I don't think this person really knows how messed up I am.
Mm.
And I was really concerned. I had this whole other vision about what a retreat is, where you go there and maybe get massages and pedicures, and there's just this other thing going on with medicine as well. But like I realized I needed really deep, hard work. And that's what I was looking for, because I just was military in the fire department. I was cut from that block of steel, like, one who really needed to do work in order for the healing to happen. And so, yeah, I asked the gentleman on the phone. I really need your help, and I need to drink this medicine and to help me heal. But I asked him, I said, "Do you actually do work there?" And his answer was yes. And he said, "If you want to heal, you're going to have to work harder than you ever have in your entire life." And when I heard that, that answer resonated with me. And so I got on the plane and went down to Peru. And actually, within about 10 days of calling him, I literally had my passport situation straightened out. I had my airline tickets, and I was there at the gate and ready to begin my Huachuma Medicine journey. And so that's really what my story in a nutshell. Coming out the other side, I would just like to say this, and this will really probably help anyone who's listening to this to understand. It's like I could tell you a dozen different stories about illness that was inside of me and dysfunction that was inside of me that I needed to heal. But coming out the other side, and I look back at it, truly, if you were to ask me, Michael, why did you go there? What was the one thing that that you needed to deal with in this medicine? And I'll take all of those experiences down, all that dysfunction, pain, trauma, suffering, and I'll say this one thing. I was disconnected from myself. Through all of that trauma that I experienced my entire life, what I was truly suffering from was self-disconnection. And I can't think of a better way to word that. Maybe there is a more clinical term than that right there, but it was purely, I wasn't connected to myself. And once I recognized that and understood that, healing was a pure pleasure. It was joy. I just finding that connection and getting to know myself and who I was. And so that's that part of the story in a nutshell. And yeah.
Beautiful, man. I love it. So how much time did you spend with the medicine that first time?
So good question. So I did go down 2 times. The first time I went down was in early to mid February, and I spent 6 weeks there. I did 15 ceremonies. And for me personally, I remember the facilitator at the retreat center telling me, kind of joking about it, but in a compassionate way, letting me know that, this is going to take a while. You're here for 6 weeks. It might not even happen in this amount of time for you personally. He goes, but he said, I really haven't seen somebody come through my gate that it was really as dysfunctional and damaged as you are. And like I said, he said that in a very compassionate, loving way, but he under no circumstances made any promises to me about my healing. He just said, it'll happen in its time, but you got to do your work. And so anyways, like I said, 6 weeks, 15 ceremonies, every other day, so Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I got to say that I was really concerned in the beginning because it was really hard work. And like I was hoping, I had some experience in the past through my life with psychedelics, mushrooms and LSD, few other things. And I did experience some good times there and some joy there. And I was really concerned after a few ceremonies because there was some younger people that were there. And after a few ceremonies, when the ceremony was done, we'd get together around the fire and they would just like be talking a million miles a minute about all these beautiful visions and all this wonderful stuff that happened to them in the ceremony. And I was scratching my head and I'm going like, man, that wasn't my experience. Like I was really, in some ways, I felt like I was, every ceremony, I was being disassembled to a cellular level and scrubbed with a scrub brush and then polished with a polishing cloth and put back together. And there were parts of that experience that were rather uncomfortable. And but I always knew that in the moments that were uncomfortable for me, I had a feeling inside of me, and I knew 100% that what was happening needed to happen. I felt joy in that discomfort, and I felt happy to just know that the work was being done and I was a part of it. And so that was wonderful. I will say that my time there in the Andes in the medicine, it was a very synergistic healing approach. So it wasn't just the medicine, it was the charisma and the love of the people that were there with me. It was Pachamama, Mother Nature, the mountains, the blue skies, the rivers, the eucalyptus forest. It was just everything combined that all did its work to help me to heal myself. And that was one of the wonderful things about that experience that really cemented me into sticking with it and accepting it. And that was that there was this gentleman there who was the facilitator, wonderful person, but it was really nice for me to understand that he was just a gatekeeper. He was just a facilitator. And what this actually was about, that I realized early on, was it was about a relationship between me and the Cactus medicine. And so the healing that was happening was between me and that medicine, and the responsibility was on me. And then the rewards and the ownership of that was on me. And so it was a very wonderful, feeling and very deeply healing. So at the end of the day, when I walked back to the retreat center, and I had rough days most day coming back, but I felt really wonderful inside because it was like I said to myself, Michael, you did that. And it made me stronger, and it made me prepared to go out the next day and do it again. And, I will mention that the other things that were involved in that was just a great diet and a low stress environment, and yoga and exercise, and the retreat center provided that opportunity for me. It was a place where I could just focus on myself. And I would say that anywhere a person goes, whether it's anywhere on this earth, that the focus should be there. It's not, like I said, it's a synergistic holistic approach. So not just the medicine, but the medicine plays the biggest part in it, but it's also being in an environment where you don't have distractions, where you're able to eat well, where you're able to rest and integrate on your days off. And all of that was provided for me down in Peru, and really wonderful experience for me. And so, like I said, I got 15 ceremonies in, and a lot happened there. Every single ceremony, I was absolutely shocked that uh, I would be blown away by this just deep experience that I would have, and I would think, like, how can this get any more connected and loving and compassionate, and go back out 2 days later and have an experience that would even blow that away.
Mhm.
And so it was every day deep healing. And after 15 days, I felt like I was completely healed, and until I got home. And then I realized that, yeah, you've come a long way, but there's still a lot of work to do.
Hmm. Yeah, so let's
And
talk about that. Let's talk about your integration and how that went.
um, right. So for me personally, I won't, I'll say that I got the, so here's, I'll just say my experience with the medicine in general is that um, what you get is exactly what you need. And so for me personally, I made huge steps in the healing process. But when I came home, I recognized that I didn't fully have the tools that I needed to to integrate the experiences that I had, because I came back and I went just like right back into the chaos that was home life in the United States.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I was just so used to yeah, I was used to the diet, all of it, a slower life. And so my mind, the medicine was still working in me. And so I made some mistakes myself of just having myself in situations and of stress. And I guess the best way to put it was I got home and I stopped maintaining the connection that I had achieved while I was down in Peru. And so, and I
Connection to
just was
yourself.
early on in my healing.
Hmm.
I just, well, it takes a little bit of time. That connection is fragile. And so I just want to actually just backpedal a tiny bit and make a statement here. And what I realized about that connection and about the healing is that when I went down there, I was 57 years old, and I had a lifetime of baggage that and trauma that I had collected. And so, what I was saying before about the younger people that were there with me, um, I probably all the time that I spent with people that were in their late 20s, early 30s, or late 20s and 30s. And I noticed that all of them found healing within about 5 or 6 ceremonies. Like, it was relatively quick.
Hmm.
And I couldn't figure that out at first. And, you know, looking back on it, I understand what it is completely. They didn't have the time in life to collect all of the trauma that I had. My experience was really unique. Exactly. And so what I'd like to say is that, like, for anybody watching this, I would use me as an example of, like, what is the most extreme case that this medicine can handle. And it's like, if you look at yourself and you can say, well, I didn't go through all this combat, and I wasn't a crack cocaine addict, and and I didn't watch people die all the time in the fire department and all of these other things,
Right.
then you could pretty much rest assured that you're not going to have to spend the time that I had to spend, and have the lessons that I had in integration.
Right.
And so yeah, so the integration thing was difficult for me. I didn't pay attention to some of the things that you told me when I was down in Peru, and that other people told me about integration. Like, I found that tools were out there for me, and I just didn't pay a lot of attention to it. I was just so overjoyed, and I thought, "Oh, I got this," and I just didn't pay attention. And I think this just kind of resonates and goes along with the rest of my life. And I was just a hard case, and it was like, that was my story. I needed to come back and suffer the way I did. And I don't want to make that sound like I went down there and I went down there for nothing and I lost everything, because I didn't. But it just a couple of things I'll say. I wasn't ready to come home.
Mm.
I needed to come home because, like I said, I'm married. I've got a house and I got a small farm and animals and family and grandkids, and I couldn't be gone for that long. And so I needed to come back. And when I got back, we realized relatively quick, my wife and I, that I needed to come back down to Peru again. And so I did that after being home about a month and a half. I got back on a plane and went down to Peru again. And the second time I went down for 2 months.
Mm-hmm. So almost double the initial time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I actually when I left Peru the second time, I had almost 50 ceremonies under my belt.
Right. And would you say that the growth in the second time that you went was more compound growth? Was it bridging the ceremonies that you had before? Was it like starting anew? What was it like?
So, good question. And for me, I was extremely concerned about what you're asking me right there because I thought, all right, I've been gone now for it probably had been close to 2 months since I had drank my last medicine. And I remember those first 5 or 6 ceremonies, and I was like, man, I don't want to start there again. I was really concerned about that. Like, I did all this hard work, and it was
Uh-huh.
pretty difficult for me. And man, I'll tell you, I got there, I drank medicine the first time, and it was just like it was picking up right where I started off. It was even better. Um, I just right back into it and really happy. Like, just the core of my being was just overjoyed because the connection was back. And so what had happened is it just picked up right off where I left off, and it went right back into addressing a lot of the things that I experienced while I was trying to integrate at home. And it was like, now we're going to fix these things and teach you these lessons about
Mhm.
communication with other people, about being able to handle stress and minor forms of trauma that are happening around you. And that was a wonderful thing. But it also it just got deeper into my childhood, and it, like, really, interesting thing that about Huachuma medicine is that it's a very intelligent medicine. And for a lot of people, they're like, what do you mean by intelligent? And so it's like, so for a person like me, um I had so many things that happened to me, just so much rewiring, so much trauma that had to be done, that the medicine, and I think the medicine understood, intelligent wise, like, okay, I've got this guy for 30 more ceremonies. So it's almost like the medicine brought down amnesia upon me for
Mm.
certain traumatic things that I wanted to heal, right? So I had this like a little kid writing a letter to Santa Claus. I had this whole list of things that I wanted and thought that I needed to have done. And it was almost like I had the order and everything of how I wanted it done, right? And it's like, I want this whole list done and then I'll be free. And it's like Huachuma Medicine looked at the list and said, yeah, that's a good list. However, I got a list and I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
And so it was like almost that entire list that I had, it just went into a amnesia file. And it just said, forget about this.
Right.
We're going to get to them. But it's like it gave me that amnesia so I didn't have to worry about them and think about them and like, when am I going to heal this? And when am I going to heal this? Right. And it just went in an intelligent fashion. And it said, this has to be healed before we can heal this. And when it was going on, I didn't understand it. But towards the end, when it was put all together, I was like, this is incredibly brilliant and amazing. Because I realized, like, I couldn't heal this situation. I'll give you an example. I had issues that I needed to resolve with my marriage with my wife. And had I uh, had I with those on day one of the healing experience, I would have had to have that on my mind the rest of the time while I was in Peru, while I was trying to heal the other things, right? But my mind would have been occupied with all these other things that I'm trying to work on with my wife and my marriage. And so the medicine just gently wiped that away. It was so weird how many things that I wanted to heal that were on my mind when I went there. And then all of a sudden they just disappeared from my mind and they never came back again until the medicine said, now we're going to deal with this.
Right.
And it was absolutely brilliant, because if I had those things bearing down on me the entire time I was there, it would have been an interference to the healing of the things that had priority. Hopefully that makes sense to you.
No, it totally does. I like to say to people that it knows us better than we know ourselves. You know,
Oh, yes.
we think we have all these expectations. We want things to happen in a certain order. And like you're saying, like we have this big Christmas list or whatever, and then the medicine's like, yeah, that's nice, and I love your intentions there, but like a good teacher teaches you to do it in a logical, productive fashion.
It does. And so for me, I had some physical things that I was dealing with. So probably some mild, maybe not even mild, brain damage from decades of alcohol abuse and cocaine abuse. I had a heart arrhythmia that I was hospitalized for a couple of years ago from cocaine abuse. Memory issues and other problems from methamphetamine abuse. I suffered blunt force trauma multiple times to my head in the fire department in the Marine Corps. Traumatic brain injury in the Marine Corps from explosions around me. And the first part of my time there, the medicine was dealing with physical trauma within inside of me, taking care of problems inside of my gut. I can only imagine what was going on. Were they cancers or whatever, things that were happening that were just out of whack? And so the medicine spent a lot of time, that first part of my time down there, dealing with the traumatic brain injury, dealing with the brain damage that I caused myself from drinking alcohol. I literally watched those things being fixed inside of me. I watched myself get an MRI. I could see the parts of my brain that were needed to be fixed, and I watched the medicine go through and systematically fix it at a cellular level. So yeah, it was crazy amazing.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Well, let's try to keep this short for our viewers.
Okay. Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to tell people who are considering Huachuma medicine for healing and or spiritual growth that you feel like they should know if they don't have much psychedelic or plant medicine experience? You know, a lot of those fears or question marks start to come up. What would you tell them?
Well, the things that I would say is, like, first, do some deep searching within yourself to decide whether or not this medicine is for you. And I think that the important thing, like, to just take out of my story is the short thing that I said, and that is, how is your connection with yourself, right? It's like, there's a lot of people, until they hear this, they're not going to think about the actual, it's about connection. And so the connection is an important thing. And I guess it's important to ask yourself, how important is that connection, and how is my own connection? And, if that's important to you, which it certainly should be, that is something that the medicine can give to you. What I will say is, like, for considering whether or not you're going to do this, I consider the things as far as being able to dedicate the time to yourself,
Right.
and that this is not a magical pill or a magical elixir that you just drink and you're healed. There are people out there that drink one cup of this and have one ceremony and they're finished. I think that that's atypical. Most younger people are able to get substantial relief within 4 to 6 ceremonies, and some people even take longer. It really just depends on you and the amount of trauma that you've had in your life. But I think that you should, a person should consider a holistic approach to this, and think about not just the medicine, but the effects that diet and a change of environment can provide for you as well,
Right.
because those are really important things, and that also when you're doing this, that dedication has to be there. It's not just drinking the medicine, but am I ready to do this? So like isolating yourself, that you're dedicating yourself to the medicine so that the medicine can do its work. Really important. If there's one thing that I would really like to say here to help people to understand what that means about connection, and that is, before I went, I never had a relationship with God, and I'm so when I say that, I'm not talking about God in a sense of Jesus or Allah or Buddha or any other type of spiritual connection to God, but I'm talking about the God and the heaven that lies within each individual. And so, like, my entire life, I just lived this kind of an atheist life. And I've said this before, and now I'm giving you just more proof of that, is that I didn't have connection with myself.
Mhm.
And so when I got to the end of my time down in Peru, I thought, yeah, I'm completely healed. But it was actually in the last couple ceremonies where I had this revelation and this connection with the creator. And God came, and this is my God, my spirit, whatever it is, actually came to me, and I connected with that. And that was really the final piece of healing that I needed. And I never realized that. I was like, oh, I'm healed. But I wasn't until that moment happened.
Mhm.
That's when the final connection happened. And
Mhm.
so what if you ask me, like, what was the final thing there that made you realize, like you're healed and this is working, and you had your connection with yourself? It was my connection to the creator. That's my higher self, me, God. It
Mhm.
lies within me, and it lies within every individual. And so that's something else to keep in mind and to ask yourself is, do you have that connection with yourself? Do you want to have that connection with yourself?
Mhm.
And Of all of the reasons, that should be the one right there that brings you to the medicine, and that brings you to work with yourself in order to make yourself a better human being.
Yeah. So beautiful, man. Couldn't have said it better myself. Oh, well, let's cap it at that. That's I think, a beautiful point to leave it. I can't
Sorry
wait.
if I took too much time there, Jeremy. I'm really excited about this. So,
No, I have the free Zoom, and I know what
okay.
people attention is like on the internet. So I wanna just be mindful of people's